The holographic broadcast flickered into life, casting an eerie blue glow across the room. The overlord of the Zarek Empire, a towering figure with cold, reptilian eyes, sneered at the camera, his voice dripping with contempt. "Humans, your species is insignificant. You are nothing more than primitives playing with sticks and stones. We challenge you to present your most powerful weapon. Prove your worth, or be obliterated." In the heart of Earth's military command center, Commander Nathan Hayes leaned forward, his knuckles whitening as he gripped the edge of the war table. The room was silent, the weight of the alien's words pressing down on the gathered leaders. General Marcus Tane, a grizzled veteran with a scar cutting across his brow, broke the silence first. "We have no chance against them," he muttered, shaking his head. "Our weapons are outdated compared to their technology. We're outmatched." Nathan's jaw tightened, his mind racing through possibilities. He was a strategist, known for his ability to think outside the box, but even he felt the sting of helplessness in the face of the Zarek Empire's superiority. The thought of billions of lives hanging in the balance made his stomach churn. "Not all our weapons," Nathan said quietly, his voice cutting through the gloom. All eyes turned to him. "There is one option. The project." Across the table, Dr. Evelyn Carter visibly flinched at the mention. Her eyes, usually sharp with intellect, were now clouded with fear. "We can't use it, Nathan. You know what it is, what it can do. We're talking about something far beyond conventional warfare." "The Zarek don't fight conventional wars," Nathan countered, his gaze steady. "If we don't respond, Earth is finished. We don't have the luxury of choosing a less dangerous path. It's either them or us." The room fell into a heavy silence, the kind that only comes when there are no good options left. Evelyn looked down at the table, her mind replaying the horrors she had witnessed during the development of the project. It wasn't just a weapon, it was a force of nature, a creation born out of desperation and fear. A beast with a mind of its own. The operator, a shadowy figure who had been standing in the corner, stepped forward, his presence commanding the room without uttering a word. His face was obscured by the dim light, but his voice was cold and measured. "It's not just a weapon. It's a last resort, one we cannot control once unleashed. But it's the only thing that can level the playing field." Nathan nodded, his resolve hardening. "We have no choice. Evelyn, prepare the activation sequence. We're going to show the Zarek what primitive really means." Evelyn hesitated, her hands trembling slightly as she keyed in the sequence. "I hope you know what you're doing, Nathan," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "So do I," Nathan replied, though his gaze remained unyielding. As the command center's lights dimmed, a deep rumble echoed from beneath the earth, growing louder with each passing second. The ground shook as something ancient and deadly stirred from its slumber, a weapon not forged from steel or fire, but from the darkest corners of human ingenuity. The Zarek Empire would soon learn the price of underestimating humanity. But as Nathan watched the monitors, the unease in his gut only grew. He knew that once this beast was unleashed, there would be no turning back. The countdown began. 10 seconds to activation. And with each tick, the tension in the room climbed higher, the weight of their decision pressing down like a vice. 3, 2, 1. The final seconds stretched into eternity as the lights flickered, and the room was plunged into darkness. Then, a single, ominous roar pierced the silence. The underground facility hummed with energy as Nathan and Evelyn descended deeper into its heart. Each step felt like a march towards something irreversible. The walls, lined with cables and flickering screens, pulsed with the ominous anticipation of what lay ahead. Evelyn's breath was shallow, her fingers trembling slightly as she gripped the tablet containing the activation codes. "This place feels like a tomb," she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. Nathan didn't respond, his focus unyielding as they approached the final security checkpoint. He scanned his ID, and the heavy steel doors slid open with a groan, revealing a cavernous chamber bathed in a dim red light. In the center of the room, encased in a massive glass cylinder, was the project, a creature that defied understanding. Its form was shrouded in darkness, but the outline was enough to stir primal fear. Coiled muscles rippled beneath its obsidian skin, and its eyes, burning with an unnatural intelligence, tracked their every movement. It wasn't just alive, it was aware. Evelyn hesitated at the threshold, her fear palpable. "Nathan, are you sure about this? We barely survived its last activation. It's not just a weapon, it's a predator. We're unleashing something we might never control again." Nathan turned to her, his expression unreadable. "We're out of options, Evelyn. The Zarek are coming, and they won't stop until Earth is ashes. This is our only chance." She nodded reluctantly, knowing he was right. The memory of the creature's first test run haunted her, how it had torn through simulated enemy lines with brutal efficiency, only to turn its ferocity on anything that moved. It was a force of nature, honed by human desperation into something both magnificent and terrifying. Nathan stepped forward, placing his hand on the activation panel. A surge of energy crackled through the air as the system came to life, the glass cylinder beginning to rise. The creature tensed, its muscles coiling as if sensing its imminent release. Evelyn's voice wavered as she spoke, her eyes locked on the beast. "What if we can't control it, Nathan? What if it decides we're the enemy?" Nathan glanced at her, his resolve unshaken. "Then we make sure it knows who its real enemies are. It was designed to protect humanity, even if it has to be reminded of that." The glass cylinder fully retracted, and the creature stepped out, its movements fluid and predatory. It stood over 10 feet tall, its black skin reflecting the dim light as if absorbing it. For a moment, the beast regarded them with an unsettling calm, its eyes narrowing as it seemed to weigh their worth. Nathan held his breath, the tension in the air thick enough to cut. He met the creature's gaze, refusing to show fear. "We're not your prey," he said firmly, his voice steady. "We are your creators, and we command you to fight." The creature's eyes flared, and it let out a low growl that reverberated through the chamber. Then, with a suddenness that made Evelyn jump, it turned away from them and began to stride toward the exit, its massive form moving with lethal grace. Nathan exhaled slowly, his heart pounding in his chest. "Let's hope it remembers that when the real fight begins." As they followed the beast out of the chamber, Evelyn couldn't shake the feeling that they had just unleashed something far more dangerous than the Zarek. The creature was free now, and the line between ally and enemy had never felt so thin. The war room buzzed with frantic activity as Earth's defense forces prepared for the inevitable assault. Holographic maps of the planet displayed the incoming Zarek fleet, an ominous wave of destruction hurtling toward Earth's atmosphere. The tension was palpable, thick as smoke in the air, as officers barked orders and technicians scrambled to secure final preparations. Nathan stood at the center, his eyes glued to the tactical display. The project, now fully operational and deployed on the surface, was represented by a single ominous dot. The creature had moved into position near the primary landing zone where the Zarek were expected to strike first. It was a calculated risk, placing the beast so close to the enemy's point of entry, but Nathan knew they had no other choice. "This is it," he muttered to himself, his voice barely audible above the din. "Everything we've planned, everything we've sacrificed, it all comes down to this." Evelyn appeared at his side, her face pale but composed. She handed him a tablet with the latest updates on the creature's status. "It's responding to the commands, but I'm not sure for how long. The deeper it goes into the fight, the more likely it is to lose focus." Nathan glanced at the data, noting the creature's vital signs, its heightened aggression levels, and the escalating tension in its muscular structure. "As long as it takes down the Zarek," he replied, his voice steady, "we'll deal with whatever happens after." A sudden silence fell over the room as a communication line opened. The harsh, guttural voice of the Zarek overlord filled the space, dripping with disdain. "Humans, your resistance is futile. Surrender now, and your annihilation will be swift." Nathan gritted his teeth, his hands tightening into fists. "Not today," he whispered fiercely, knowing the overlord couldn't hear him. He signaled to the comms officer, who opened a direct channel. "This is Commander Nathan Hayes of Earth Defense Command. We're ready for you." Come and see what your arrogance has earned. The Overlord's response was a low, menacing laugh, and the channel went dead. A moment later, alarms blared as the Zarek fleet entered the atmosphere. The sky lit up with fire as the first wave of enemy ships descended, their sleek, predatory forms breaking through the clouds like a swarm of locusts. Nathan's heart pounded in his chest as he watched the screen. "Deploy the project," he ordered, his voice cutting through the tension. "It's time." On the ground, the creature stirred. Its eyes flared with a fierce, primal light as it sensed the approaching threat. Without waiting for further command, it launched itself forward, a blur of black against the scorched earth. The Zarek ships, sleek and deadly, descended in perfect formation, their weapons primed to obliterate anything in their path. But they were not prepared for what awaited them. The beast leaped into the air, its claws extended, and tore through the first ship like it was paper. The sound of metal shredding echoed through the valley as the creature ripped into the enemy, a whirlwind of destruction. Explosions erupted in its wake as the Zarek fleet struggled to regroup, their precise formations disintegrating under the ferocity of the attack. In the war room, a murmur of disbelief rippled through the ranks as they watched the screens. The creature was not just holding its own, it was decimating the enemy. Nathan's breath caught in his throat as he realized the full extent of what they had unleashed. Evelyn's voice was a whisper of awe. "It's working! It's actually working!" But even as the Zarek ships fell in flames, Nathan couldn't shake the unease gnawing at the back of his mind. The creature was fighting with a relentless fury, but how long before it turned that same fury on them? The first victory was theirs, but the true battle had only just begun. The aftermath of the first battle left the Earth's defense forces in a rare moment of silence. The war room, once filled with frantic energy, now felt eerily still as everyone absorbed what they had witnessed. The screen showed the wreckage of Zarek ships scattered across the landscape, smoke rising from the smoldering remains. The creature, Earth's secret weapon, stood motionless amidst the destruction, its breath heavy and labored. Nathan's gaze remained fixed on the holographic display, which now highlighted the second wave of Zarek forces moving into position. The battle was far from over. "They're regrouping," he murmured, voice laced with urgency. "We need to prepare for the next attack." Evelyn approached, her expression a mix of concern and determination. "The creature is exhausted, Nathan. We pushed it too hard too soon. If we send it back out like this—" "I know," Nathan interrupted, rubbing his temples as if trying to force a solution out of his mind. "But we don't have a choice. We have to hold them off, or we're finished." In that moment, the creature's image on the display flickered, then vanished. A low, mechanical hum filled the room as the lights dimmed, signaling a system-wide disruption. Panic rippled through the ranks as technicians frantically worked to restore the visuals. "What the hell is happening?" Nathan demanded, his voice rising above the chaos. "Sir," one of the technicians called out, "we've lost communication with the project. It's gone dark." Nathan's blood ran cold. The project, their last line of defense, was no longer responding. It was as if the creature had vanished into thin air. "Can you re-establish the link?" he asked, knowing the answer before it came. "We're trying, sir, but there's interference, some kind of signal jamming. It's like nothing we've seen before." Nathan exchanged a grim look with Evelyn. "The Zarek," he said, realizing the enemy had anticipated their plan. "They're trying to neutralize our weapon. If they succeed, we're sitting ducks." Evelyn's eyes narrowed as she processed the information. "Then we need to act now, before they completely shut us down. We can't rely on the creature alone. We have to take the fight to them." A sudden resolve hardened in Nathan's chest. "You're right. Get the fighters ready. We'll lead the charge ourselves if we have to." As the war room sprang back into action, the air crackled with renewed energy. Nathan grabbed his helmet and made his way to the hangar, where pilots were already scrambling to their ships. Evelyn was close behind, her eyes filled with a fierce determination that matched his own. Outside, the sky darkened as the Zarek ships drew closer, their massive forms blotting out the sun. The creature still hadn't reappeared, and time was running out. Nathan climbed into his fighter, his mind racing through every possible scenario. But deep down, he knew there was only one way this could end. As the engines roared to life, Nathan cast one last glance at the battlefield below. "We either win this now," he muttered to himself, "or we don't win at all." The squadron took off, cutting through the atmosphere like a blade through water. The Zarek forces loomed ahead, their weapons locked on the incoming fighters. But Nathan felt no fear, only a burning resolve. For humanity. For Earth. "Engage!" he commanded, and the sky erupted into a blaze of fire and metal. In the chaos of battle, a sudden flash caught Nathan's eye. The creature, reappearing out of nowhere, charged directly into the heart of the Zarek fleet. It was battered, its movements slower, but it fought with an almost desperate fury, tearing through the enemy like a force of nature. Nathan smiled grimly. They still had a chance. The final battle had begun.